Are pot stocks ever going to be profitable? This is an important question that cannabis investors need to ask. Canopy Growth, which is the top player in the Canadian cannabis space, just reported its fiscal Q4 results a few days ago. And the company lost over $300 million in that quarter alone and almost $700 million for the year. These huge losses have renewed concerns that some investors have about the future profitability or lack thereof of pot producers. These are also concerns that I share because, in spite of all the hype surrounding Canadian cannabis, not a single producer has yet to report a dime of real profit from their operations. At my firm Keystone, we put out a comprehensive report on cannabis stocks last November. At the time, there were 109 companies listed in the sector in Canada, and only 14 of those companies were reporting revenue of over $1 million per quarter. None of those companies were making a profit, and in fact, the vast majority of them weren't reporting any revenue at all. We updated the data in May for one of our cross-country DIY investor seminars, and the number of listed companies grew to 178, with 47 reporting revenue of more than $1 million per quarter. Two of the companies were moderately profitable, but they actually were US-based companies that were listed on Canadian exchanges. None of the Canadian producers were making any money on the bottom line, and over half of the companies weren't reporting any revenue at all. Very, very few companies can just continue losing money and raising more from investors. Eventually, the market says enough is enough, or the market goes through a downturn, making it hard for companies to raise more capital. One concern that I have is that the cannabis market in Canada is actually quite limited, and it's already saturated with producers. There are 157 licenses that have been granted to date to produce cannabis in Canada, and the applications continue to roll in for new licenses. Most of the estimates put domestic consumption of cannabis at around 800,000 to 1 million kilograms per year, including illegal sales. And the top 10 producers alone have plans to ramp up production to over 2.2 million kilograms per year. And this is just the top 10. There are dozens of other companies that also have big plans to grow production. So obviously all of this cannabis can't be consumed domestically, but the global market for legal cannabis is still relatively small, and there's going to be lots of competition there as well. There's a very high likelihood that the domestic market in Canada will be oversupplied over the next 2 to 3 years, and the government may have to enact certain measures to curtail production, which is very similar to what's going on in Washington State right now. The point I'm making is that the market is saturated with producers. And if you want to invest in pot stocks, you have to be very selective. There are around 180 companies listed today, and in my opinion, only a small handful of them will be successful long term and make their investors money.